Oh, that helps. Hello. Good morning, good day. Good stuff. I hope all is going well. I just wanted to get on here and, do my day's reading, I guess. We're in a new book today, guys. Isn't that exciting? We are in the book of Deuteronomy, and there is a devotional video today in the links in the description that should go over a brief insight of how Deuteronomy is gonna break down and what you could expect from Deuteronomy. It's about Deuteronomy is about 34 chapters long, and it's all coming from the point of view of Moses. So we already know that Moses is about to be Moses' orders right now. We know he won't be able to enter the promised land because of the rebellion. His little, I want to say outburst, his little tantrum, whatever you want to call it, when he hits the rock instead of speaking to it. But he not only hits that rock, he claims the ability to bring water to the people himself, sort of. So he's not entering the promised land. His job is to set Israel, prepare Israel for their road trip, and then go off and climb a mountain and look at the promised land. That's all he really gets, is that you can go gaze at it from a vantage point, but you can't really, we won't allow you to enter. So at some point that goes down, right? So there's got to be a changing of the guard because Joshua's taking the lead there, and sort of a distancing, I feel like, of the Lord's middleman, so to speak, because Moses played this middleman role between God and the Israelites. But now that the Israelites don't have Moses there, they're switching that to Joshua. Joshua has to go through Eliezer or whoever else the head priest is, right? So now it's God, head priest, Joshua, Israelites. Whereas it was God, Moses, Israelites. Or God, Moses, head priest, and Israelites together. So that should be an interesting dynamic that plays out once we get into that part of the story. I want to see how that starts to affect things, because even with just the one tier of in between with Moses, there was still lots of disorder, disruption, and disobedience. So hey, who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen next? Who knows? I mean, we kind of know, but who really knows? Let's dig into these verses and see where we're going. Okay, so after the devotional, there's Deuteronomy. We're reading 1 through 3. Whoop, whoop, new book. Let's go. And then Psalms 53, because we're on our 53rd day. 53rd day. 53rd? Was it 53rd day? And that's only 5 days away from our mini goal. So we're trucking along. Deuteronomy. Moses delivers his final words of warning and wisdom to the Israelites before they enter the promised land. This is the epic conclusion of the Torah. And spoiler alert, Moses dies. Okay. So in Deuteronomy 1, we have Moses, introduction to Moses' first address. So I guess he's addressing the people of Israel. These are the words Moses spoke to all the people of Israel while they were in the wilderness east of the Jordan River. So this is right in front of the Promised Land area, or near the Promised Land area that they gotta heading towards. They were camped in the Jordan Valley near Sufa, between Paran on the side and Tophel, Laban, Hazeroth, and Dizahab on the other. Normally, it takes only 11 days to travel from Mount Sinai to Kadesh Barnea, going by way of Mount Seir. But 40 years after the Israelites left Egypt, on the first day of the 11th month, Moses addressed the people of Israel, telling them everything the Lord had commanded him to say. This took place after he defeated King Sihon of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon, and the Edrei. He had defeated King Og at Edrei had defeated King Og of Bashan, who ruled over Ashtaroth. While the Israelites were in the land of Moab, east of the Jordan River, Moses carefully explained the Lord's instructions as follows. The command to leave Sinai. When we were at Mount Sinai, the Lord our God said to us, "You have stayed at this mountain long enough. It is time to break camp and move on. Go to the hill country of the Amorites and to all the neighboring regions, the Jordan Valley, the hill country, the western foothills, the Negev, the coastal plain. Go to the land of the Canaanites and to Lebanon, and all the way to the great Euphrates River. Look, I am giving you all this land. Go in and occupy it, for it is the land the Lord swore to give your ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and to all their descendants." Moses appoints leaders from each tribe. Moses continued, "At that time I told you, you are too great a burden for me to carry all by myself. The Lord your God has increased your population, making you numerous as stars. And may the Lord, the God of your ancestors, multiply you 1,000 times more and bless you as he promised. But you are a heavy load to carry. How can I deal with all your problems and bickering? Choose some well-respected men from each tribe who are known for their wisdom and understanding, and I will appoint them as your leaders." Then you responded, "Your plan is a good one." So I took the wise and respected men you had selected from your tribes and appointed them to serve as judges and officials over you. Some were responsible for 1,000 people, some for 100, some for 50, and some for 10. At that time I instructed the judges, "You must hear the cases of your fellow Israelites and the foreigners living among you. Be perfectly fair in your decisions and impartial in your judgments. Hear the cases of those who are poor as well as those who are rich. Be afraid of anyone's anger." Don't be afraid of anyone's anger. For the decision you make is God's decision. Bring me any cases that are too difficult for you, and I will handle them. At that time, I gave you instructions about everything you were to do. Scouts explore the land. Then, just as the Lord our God commanded us, we left Mount Sinai and traveled toward the great and terrifying wilderness, as you yourselves remember, and headed toward the hill country of the Amorites. When we arrived at Kadesh Barnea, I said to you, "You have now reached the hill country of the Amorites that the Lord our God is giving us. Look, he has placed the land in front of you. Go and occupy it as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, has promised you. Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged." But you all came to me and said, "First, let's send out scouts to explore the land for us. They will advise us on the best route to take and which towns we should enter." Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know it was their idea to send out scouts. Oh. So it's go and occupy it. That was the command, the instruction. And instead they're like, let's send out scouts to check it out first. And that's led to their destruction. That branch of disobedience of like, I know what you said, go and occupy, but let me just send some people first and they can check it out and we can know which towns to enter. You want to know which towns to enter? All of them, because you're occupying it. Ooh, okay. And then not only did they send out the scouts, and then itself probably would have been like, all right, well, you scouted it, but you got there. The scouts turn around and they send these reports, disastrous reports, and everyone's ooh, and everyone's not too scared to go and occupy the land. That's for church and church. Yeah, okay, I can do that. Yeah, and then we're gonna note that. Wow, the scouts was disobedience in itself, and then it led to a whole rebellion. Disobedience and then led to a faithless rebellion. Okay. Deuteronomy 23. This seemed like a good idea to me, so I chose 12 scouts, one from each of your tribes. They headed for the hill country and came to the valley of Escol and explored it. They picked some of its fruit and brought it back to us, and they reported, the land our God has given us is indeed a good land. Israel's rebellion against the Lord. But you rebelled against the command of the Lord your God and refused to go in. You complained in your tents and said, the Lord must hate us. That's why he has brought us here from Egypt to hand us over to the Amorites to be slaughtered. Where can we go? Our brothers have demoralized us with their report. They tell us the people of the land are taller and more powerful than we are, and their towns are larger with walls rising high into the sky. We even saw giants there and descendants of Anak. But I said to you, don't be shocked or afraid of them. The Lord your God is going ahead of you. He will fight for you, just as you saw him do in Egypt, and you saw how the Lord your God cared for you all along the way as you traveled through the wilderness, just as a father cares for his child. Now he has brought you to this place. But even after all he did, you refused to trust the Lord your God, who goes before you looking for the best places to camp, guiding you with a pillar of fire by night and a pillar of cloud by day. When the Lord heard your complaining, he became very angry. So he solemnly swore, not one of you from this wicked generation will live to see the good land I swore to give your ancestors, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh. He will see this land because he has followed the Lord completely. I will give to him and his descendants some of the very land he explored during his scouting mission. And the Lord was also angry with me because of you. He said to me, Moses, not even you will enter the promised land. Instead, your assistant, Joshua, son of Nun, will lead the people into the land. Encourage him, for he will lead Israel as they take possession of it. I will give the land to your little ones, your innocent children. You were afraid they would be captured, but they will be the ones who occupy it. As for you, turn around now and go back through the wilderness toward the Red Sea. Is that how it happened? I mean, the Lord was angry with them because of whatever, angry with Moses because of them, so that's true. But this makes it seem like that happened at the same spot in time during the scouting faithless rebellion situation, but that's not when it happened. They did that first, and then they were wandering, weren't they? They did that first, and then they were wandering, and then Moses was like, oh, they were grumbly, and they were like, we need water. It was like, you wouldn't need water if you had just entered the promised land, but here we are now, wandering because you were too scared, and you were like bickering and whatever, and now I gotta bring you water from this rock. Why do I always have to bring you water? And bring you to water, whatever. So then he rebels in that moment. But this makes it seem like they happened like see, the Bible plays with time, and for me, it likes. Look, I know time is time doesn't exactly matter, but those little nuances to me make are important. Okay. Deuteronomy 1:41. Then you confessed, we have sinned against the Lord. We will go into the land and fight for it, as the Lord our God has commanded us. So your men strapped on their weapons, thinking it would be easy to attack the hill country. But the Lord told me to tell you, don't attack, for I am not with you. If you go ahead on your own, you will be crushed by your enemies. This is what I told you, but you would not listen. Instead, you again rebelled against the Lord's command and arrogantly went into the hill country to fight. But the Amorites who lived there came out against you like a swarm of bees. They chased and battered you all the way from Sur to Hormah. Then you returned and wept before the Lord, but he refused to listen. So you stayed there at Kadesh for a long time. That's true. That's true. The timing of your obedience matters. The timing of your obedience matters. Because by the time that God moved on to his next command, you want to be obedient to the old command. You want to be obedient. But he moved on. The timing of your obedience matters. And now you're like, okay, well, we can go. Let's fight. But the Lord's not with you. Because he moved on. You disobeyed. You lost the window of obedience. It's like if you see a child, you told the child to get something. And the child's like, okay, I don't want to do all that. Da, da, da. And then he spends 3 weeks throwing a tantrum. Then you're like, all right, whatever. I'm not getting it for you no more. Blah, blah, blah. Or whatever. He's like, you can't have it now because you acting up. Go that way. And they're like, no, I'll go get it now. It's okay. I'll go get it. The timing of your obedience matters. And if you want to be disobedient to the first thing, when the next thing comes, don't go, oh, I'll be obedient to the first thing now. No, you missed the window. God's no longer with you. And then you're mad, and you're going to go back and weep before the Lord, complaining at God's feet. And he's like, I don't know what you want. I'm not going to listen to this. I don't know what you want me to do. I already told you I wasn't with you. I already got Moses to try to stop you. I already told you that, you're being faithless. We're going back to the Red Sea. I already told you that I'm not with you. You weren't prepared and ready to go when I was with you. And now when I am against you, that's when you want to try to be obedient? Nope. Note the timing of your obedience. Moving on, we're going to be in Deuteronomy 2, remembering Israel's wanderings. Then we turned around and headed back across the wilderness towards the Red Sea, just as the Lord had instructed me, and we wandered around in the region of Mount Seir for a long time. Then at last the Lord said to me, "You have been wandering around in this hill country long enough. Turn to the north. Give these instructions to the people. You will pass through the country belonging to your relatives, the Edomites, the descendants of Esau, who live in Seir. The Edomites will feel threatened, so be careful. Do not bother them, for I have given them all the hill country around Mount Seir as their property, and I will not give you even 1 square foot of their land. If you need food to eat or water to drink, pay them for it. For the Lord your God has blessed you in everything you have done. He has watched your every step through this great wilderness. During these 40 years, the Lord your God has been with you, and you have lacked nothing. So we bypassed the territory of our relatives, the descendants of Esau who live in Seir. We avoided the road along the Araba Valley, and that comes from the Eliath and Ezron Geber. Then, as we turned north along the desert route through Moab, the Lord warned us, "Do not bother the Moabites, the descendants of Lot, or start a war with them. I have given them Ar as their property, and I will not give you any of their land." Yeah, I remember him saying that he wasn't going to give the Moabite land because of Lot. And I was like, yo, but then there's the whole battle with, like, doesn't the Moabite king, like, start to try, it's like, no, you can't, I'll fight you to the end or whatever. Something like that. It probably wasn't exactly that. But, like, he was ready for battle. Deuteronomy 2:10. A race of giants called the Emites had once lived in the area of Ar. They were as strong and numerous and tall as the Anakites, another race of giants. Both the Emites and the Amalekites are also known as Rephaites, though the Moabites called them Emites. In earlier times, the Horites had lived in Seir. They were driven out and displaced by the descendants of Esau, just as Israel drove out the people of Canaan when the Lord gave Israel their land. Moses continued. So all of that was in quotations. No, not quotation. Parentheses. All of this was in parentheses, so it's basically the authors giving you a bit of, like, foresight into what happened before, not Moses speaking this, but the authors going back and giving you a bit of insight of what happened overall, just because it helps you with your understanding. So then Moses continued. Then the Lord said to us, "Get moving. Cross the Zered brook." So we crossed the brook. 38 years passed from the time we first left Kadesh Barnea until we finally crossed the Zered brook. By then, all the men old enough to fight in battle had died in the wilderness, as the Lord had vowed would happen. The Lord struck them down until they had been eliminated from the community. When all the men of fighting age died, the Lord said to me, "Today you will cross the border of Moab at Ur, and enter the land of the Ammonites, the descendants of Lot. But do not bother them or start a war with them. I have given them the land of Ammon to them as their property, and I will not give you any of their land." That area was once considered the land of the Rephaites, who is, again, parentheses, who had lived there though the Ammonites called them Zamzumites, Zanzumites. They were as strong and numerous and as tall as the Amalekites. So these were also giant-ish people. But the Lord destroyed them so the Ammonites could occupy their land. He had done the same for the descendants of Esau who lived in Seir, for he destroyed the Horites as they could settle, so they could settle there in their place. The descendants of Esau lived there to this day. A similar thing happened when the Caphatorites from Crete invaded and destroyed the Avites who had lived in the villages and in the area of Gaza. Moses couldn't. Okay, well, that's a little bit of history. I don't like the parentheses. I have no point of reference. I don't know who these people are and where their land is. Like, it just feels like a bad history class. I have no point of reference. So, moving on. Moses said, in Deuteronomy 2:24, Moses continued, "Then the Lord said, now get moving, cross the Arn Gorge. Look, I will hand over to you Sihon the Amorite king of Heshbon, and I will give you his land. Attack him and begin to occupy the land. Beginning today, I will make people throughout the earth terrified because of you. When they hear reports about you, they will tremble with dread and fear." Victory over Sihon and Heshbon. Moses continued, "From the wilderness of Kedemoth, I sent ambassadors to King Sihon of the Heshbon with this proposal of peace. Let us travel through your land. We will stay on the main road and won't turn off into the fields on either side." "Sell us food to eat and water to drink, and we will pay for it. All we want is permission to pass through your land. The descendants of Esau who live in Seir allowed us to go through their country, and so did the Moabites who live in Ar. Let us pass through until we cross the Jordan into the land the Lord our God is giving us." But King Sihon of Heshbon refused to allow us to pass through because the Lord your God made Sihon stubborn and defiant so he could help you defeat him, as he has done now. So I was wondering when he was like knocking on the door and he was like, yo, let us pass through and we won't mess with your land. Like, just let us go. Let's walk through freely. You could sell us water, sell us food. Nothing will happen. At the time, I assumed that he was like, nah, you can't come through. Because what if something happens with one of his villager people and, like, now he's worried that he's going to incur the wrath of God because God's like, yo, let me see. He's worried that he's going to incur the wrath of God because God's protecting the Israelites, but something were to happen, a small little skirmish between a Moabite villager and the Israelites, and now this. I was like, okay, I hypothesized that maybe that's why the Moabite king wouldn't let them through, even though they're like, yo, we're coming peace. But now, I mean, maybe that's still the human, like, thought frame, like, okay, nah, what if something happens? Because the heart in his heart, he had to have, like, a legitimate fear anyway, to start with. that's interesting. So to hand him over and to help with the handing over of this land, God made this king stubborn to the Israelites' offer for peace. Yeah. Okay. Then the Lord said to me, look, I have begun to hand King Shion and this land over to you. Begin now to conquer and occupy his land. Then King Shion declared war on us and mobilized his forces at Jahaz. But the Lord our God handed him over to us and crushed him, his sons and all his people. We conquered all of his towns and completely destroyed everyone, men, women, and children. Not a single person was spared. We took all the livestock as plunder for ourselves, along with anything of value from the towns we ransacked. The Lord our God also helped us conquer Aroer, and on the edge of Arnon, George, and the town in the George, and the whole area as far as Gilead. No town had walls too strong for us. However, we avoided the land of the Ammonites all along the Jabbok River and the towns in the hill country, all the places the Lord our God had commanded us to leave alone, because he had already given that land to someone else. The Lord's not going to take back what he's given you, especially if you're still being obedient. And he had long promised Esau and his descendants land. Around the same time he made the covenant promises with Abraham. No, not around the same time. Around the same time in Genesis, in the book. Not around the same time in his, like, life as it happened and unfolded. Okay. So God hardened their heart to incite the war, to start the war, to have them be positioned for war. And then the war was declared, and then he's like, yep, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose to these people, because I'm not with you. I'm actually your enemy. The other thing I wanted to highlight, because I said it before, was that, the way the Israelites tore through this land, like, everyone would be afraid of them. Like, but that's what he wanted. That's what God wants. He wants everyone to be afraid of them. Right? Because it says it in Deuteronomy 2. Beginning today, I will make people throughout the earth terrified because of you. When they hear reports of you, they will tremble with dread and fear. That's interesting. That's a dynamic way to want your chosen people to be viewed. It's just such an interesting. It's like, I'm gonna put that on hold. But here's what I consider, right? The Israelites are like the Lord's King's Guard. It's the King's Guard. You want people to be afraid of the King's Guard, right? Because God right now is engaging with Israel as if Israel were his, as if he is the king of Israel. He is the king of Israel. So that makes the people of Israel, who he lives with or lives amongst, his king's guard, his palace knights, his royal priesthood. Here we go. That's the word. His royal priesthood. You don't want people messing with your kingdom. And they would do so if they saw them as weak, or if they saw them as powerless, incapable. Right? So that's why you want a bit of that fear and dread. I don't know. Fear's interesting. It's a powerful way to gain. It's one of those like powerful, double-edged, interesting ways to gain respect. I think a lot of the reading with the Israelites is gonna be like, I'm gonna question, why would God want his chosen people to be viewed with fear and dread? Around the entire earth, I will make all of earth fear and dread you whenever they hear stories of you. I'm gonna keep pondering on that. Now we are in Deuteronomy 3. Yeah. Victory over Og of Bashan. Next, we turned and headed for the land of Bashan, where King Og and his entire army attacked us in Edrei. But the Lord told me, do not be afraid of him, for I am giving you victory over Og and his entire army, and I will give you all his land. Treat him just as you treated King Sihon of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon. So the Lord our God handed King Og and all his people over to us, and we killed them all. Not a single person survived. We conquered all 60 of his towns, the entire Gob region, and We conquered all 60 of his towns, the entire Gob region in his kingdom of Bashan. Not a single town escaped our conquest. These towns were all fortified with high walls and barred gates. We also took many unwalled villages at the same time. We completely destroyed the kingdom of Bashan, just as we had destroyed King Sihon of Heshbon. We destroyed all the people in every town we conquered, men, women, and children alike, but we kept all the livestock for ourselves and took plunder from all the towns. So we took the land of the 2 Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, all the way from the Ergon Gorge to Mount Huron. Mount Huron, this is in parentheses. Mount Huron is called Shiron by the Shedonites, by the Shedonites, and the Amorites call it Shinir. We had now conquered all the cities of the plateau and all Gilead and Bashan, as far as the towns of Salaka and Edrei, which were part of Og's kingdom in Bashan. King Og of Bashan, in parentheses. King Og of Bashan, the last survivor of the great Rephaites. His bed was made of iron and was more than 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. It can be seen in the Amorite city of Hobab. 13 feet long and 6 feet wide? That's a big bed. Is this a big man? And it's made of iron, so he's heavy? Is that what it's saying? So it's just this parenthesis, I feel like it's trying to give you an idea of the stature of King Og. It can be seen in the Ammonite city of Rafah. Right, okay. Land division east of the Jordan. When we took possession of this land, I gave the tribes of Reuben and Gad the territory beyond Aror along the Aron George, plus half of the hill country of Gilead with its towns. Then I gave the rest of Gilead and all of Bashan, Org's former kingdom, to the half tribe of Manasseh. This entire Gob region, parentheses, this entire Ergon region of Bashan used to be known as the land of Rephites. Jair, a leader of the tribe of Manasseh, conquered the whole Gob region in Bashan, all the way to the border of Geshurites and Maacathites. Jair renamed this region himself, calling it the towns of Jair, as it is still known today. I gave Gilead to the clan of Machir, but I also gave part of Gilead to the tribes of Reuben and Gad. The area I gave them extended from the middle of Arnon George to the south of the Jabbok River on the Ammonite frontier. They also received the Jordan Valley, all the way from the Sea of Gilead down to the Dead Sea, with the Jordan River serving as the western boundary. To the east were the slopes of Pisgah. Deuteronomy 3 and 18. All that time I gave this command to the tribes that would live east of the Jordan. Although the Lord God has given you this land as your property, all your fighting men must cross the Jordan ahead of your Israelite relatives, armed and ready to assist them. Your wives, children, and numerous livestock, however, may stay behind in the towns I have given you. When the Lord has given security to the rest of the Israelites, as he has to you, then they will, and when they occupy the land the Lord your God is giving them across the Jordan River, then you may all return here to the land I am giving you. The Moabites, Okay, so this is the promise that he made with Gad, Reuben, and half the Manasseh. That, like, even though you're already secure, you're not set free from the battle, this holy war that is going down with the rest of the Israelites. When all of Israel is safe and secure in their lands, and the battle is won, then you may return home. Which I think is fair. Like, how you think you're just gonna claim it? Like, we could all help you claim this land, and then you're just gonna sit here, sheltered with your family. I still just want to know who is, and they make this vow. This was like one of the first vows that was made after the laws of vows were like taught to us or written. I just still don't understand how they think, like, who's gonna protect the land that they're already settled in when no one of fighting age is over there? I mean, I guess who is with them, but like, I still see that. I'm worried that Val is going to fall apart. I still see it falling apart because human, because Israel. They haven't kept their promises well, you know? Moses forbidden to enter the land. At the time I gave Joshua this charge, you had seen for yourself everything the Lord your God has done to these two kings. He will do the same to all the kingdoms on the west side of the Jordan. Do not be afraid of the nations there, for the Lord your God will fight with you. At the time I pleaded with the Lord and said, O sovereign Lord, you have only begun to show your greatness and the strength of your hand to me, your servant. Is there any God in heaven or on earth who can perform such great and mighty deeds as you? Please let me cross the Jordan to see the wonderful land on the other side, the beautiful hill country and the Lebanon mountains. But the Lord was angry with me because of you, and he would not listen to me. That's enough, he declared. Speak of it no more, but go up to Pisgah Peak and look over the land in every direction. Take a good look, but you may not cross the Jordan River. Instead, commission Joshua and encourage and strengthen him, for he will lead the people across the Jordan. He will give them all the land you now see before you as their possession. So we stayed in the valley of Beth Peor. See, I forgot that too. Like, obviously, when he's like, you're not going to enter the promised land, Moses would plea against that. But at the first time it was said, it was like, there were no pleas. It's just like, you're not entering the promised land. Moving on. So there's definitely moments where, like, details of this are just being held for later, because that's one, good storytelling. And two, helps you really contemplate, like, how would you feel? Or, like, just putting, if you are able to interject your understanding, your own essence into the story of like Moses, and try to see the story as he lived it, right? That's what you do when you're watching a story. People do try to insert themselves into that character and wonder, how would I live that character's life? But like, when it comes to Moses, I just feel for the man. Like, he had a lot to carry. His burden was large. He was equipped though. But a slip up is a slip up there. At that moment, let's go back. Let's go back to, we finished Deuteronomy reading, and we should be entering into Psalms 53. I just want to go take a peek. We are going to Numbers. Okay. So, and Moses is in Numbers 20, Moses, this is him striking the rock, right? So we go down from Moses 20 to Numbers 25. Why did you make us leave Egypt? These are the complaints of the Israelite people, right? Why did you make us leave Egypt, bring us to this terrible place? There's no grain, no figs, no grapes, no pomegranates, no water to drink. Moses and Aaron turned away from the people and went to the entrance of the tabernacle, right? So now they fell face down on the ground, and they're trying to talk to the Lord. And the Lord says to Moses, you and Aaron must take the staff, and assemble the entire community. As the people watch, speak to the rock over there, and it will pour out its water. You will provide enough water from the rock to satisfy the whole community and their livestock. So Moses did as he was told. He took the staff from the place where it was kept before the Lord. Then he and Aaron summoned the people to come together to the rock. So I didn't even highlight this, right? But it's at 10. Before, what I highlighted is as part of Moses' rebellion is Numbers 20:11, where it says, then Moses raised his hand and struck the rock twice with the staff, and water gushed out. So the entire community and their livestock drank their fill. That's an issue where he strikes because he was told to speak. But here's another issue, right? In Numbers 20:10, then he and Aaron summoned the people, and they came and gathered at the rock. It's not only what he says, it's what he does. It's not only what he does, it's what he says. So what he does is hit the rock, but what he says is, listen, you rebels. And he shouts this. Listen, you rebels. Must we bring you water from this rock? Must we bring you water from this rock? Must we, Moses and Aaron, bring you water from this rock? It's just that we know how the Lord doesn't like having his... The Lord does not like having his works claimed by another person. And that is a major part of Moses' rebellion. Back on track. Let's go to the plan. We are in Psalms 53. Just finished Deuteronomy. Right? Yes. Ooh, back. Psalms 53. For the choir director, a meditation, a Psalm of David. Only fools say in their heart, there is no God. They are corrupt, and their actions are evil. Not one of them does good. God looks down from the heaven on the entire human race, and he looks to see if anyone is truly wise, if anyone seeks God. But no, all have turned away. All have become corrupt. No one does good, not a single one. Will those who do evil never learn? They eat up my people like bread and wouldn't think of paying. And they eat up my people like bread. And wouldn't think of praying to God. Terror will grip them, terror like they have never known before. God will scatter the bones of your enemies. You will put them to shame, for God has rejected them. Who will come from Mount Zion to rescue Israel? When God restores his people, Jacob will shout with glory, and Israel will rejoice. It's funny, the identity of Jacob and Israel, this little flicker that it does, it throws me from time to time. Because we know Jacob and Israel is the same person, but Israel is also like all of Jacob's people, So Jacob, the person, will rejoice, will be full of joy, and Israel, the nation, will rejoice. And today's recap, a few of the things that like really stick with me are like the timing of your obedience matters, and like not taking credit for the works God is doing in your life. Like give glory to God. Not taking that like, oh yeah, Nah, man, I had no idea what I was doing, and the Lord helped me through that every step of the way. The humility it takes, the lack of pride it takes to not put your self-identity before God and his works. I don't want to be kept from my promised land. So if I got to learn how to tie my tongue, how to sever my pride from... Pride's not. Taking pride in what you do. There's a limit to how much pride you can have, I guess. Having pride in your works, in your capabilities. Being too prideful that like you can't accept criticism, or you can't recognize when God's aiding you. I feel like there's a line, there's a limit to the amount of pride you can be full of. Yeah, that's today. That's day 53. Yeah, I got nothing else. I will see y'all tomorrow. Good luck out there. Have a good one until the next day begins anew. Peace out. Bye-bye.